You, as a doctor, can get your Canadian PR in under 6 months if everything lines up. And in today's video, I'll be showing you exactly how to do that. I actually applied for my own PR by myself without an immigration consultant, and I've helped several people do the same. Most people would struggle to get their Canadian PR for years. If you're a doctor, the process or the game is completely different. Being a doctor is essentially an immigration cheat code. Hey, my name is Olumide. I'm a Nigerian-born orthopedic surgery resident here in Canada, and today's video is all about how you can harness your status as a doctor to get your Canadian PR quicker. Like, if everything lines up, you could get it in as little as 6 months. We're going to be breaking it down step by step, and make sure you stick around to the end because I'll show you what a real profile looks like, and I'll walk you through how a typical doctor can get the points needed to get that Canadian PR invite. Why does permanent residency or PR matter for doctors? Now, quick reminder, if you're trying to match through the CARMs, you need your Canadian permanent residency. And if you haven't watched my previous video about the CARMs requirements, make sure you go watch that. In that video, I go through all the requirements in more detail. Let's talk about the main way most people apply for permanent residency, which is the express entry system. Super simple, and here's how it works. You would make a profile online, you answer a bunch of questions about your age, your work experience, the languages you speak, and your education. And based on all your answers, you get a score. And that score is called your CRS score, the Comprehensive Ranking System score. And then every few weeks, Canada does a draw. If your score is above the cutoff, boom, you get an invite for your PR. And at that point, all you need to do is upload your documents to prove that everything you said in your profile is legit and true. And that's it. You don't need a consultant. It's that simple. And if everything lines up, the whole process could be complete in about 6 months. So here's what you need to qualify for express entry. 1, you have to take an English test or a French test. And for English, it's usually the IELTS General. Make sure it's the general one, or the CELPIP. And you want to ensure you score high on these tests. It's not hard to score high. You just have to prepare well. And if you score high, you get the maximum amount of points from the language section. Secondly, you need to get your medical degree assessed. This is called an ECA, or the Education Credential Assessment. This could be done through Physicians Apply, or it could be done through the World Education Services. And this is just to prove that your medical degree is legit. And then 3, you have to have at least 1 year of continuous work experience in certain work categories. And as a doctor, you automatically qualify under one of those categories. The more work experience you have, the more points you would get on the calculator. And 4, you need to show proof of funds. This comes in when you've actually received the permanent residency invite and you're doing the application itself. You have to show that you have sufficient funds to sustain yourself in Canada. And if you're coming with a family, the amount of funds you have to show or prove is higher. For example, if you have 2 kids, you need to show more proof of funds than if you had no kids. Once you have all of that completed, you can then go ahead and fill in your profile. At that point, you'd get your CRS score. Here's where it gets really good for doctors. There are certain built-in advantages in the CRS system for healthcare workers. First of all, doctors, we're highly educated. We've either completed your MBBS or your MD, and in the CRS system, that gives you more points than if you'd completed only a bachelor's. Next up, we have the special or secret pathway, the one that most people actually don't know about, healthcare specific draws. So you know how I mentioned every few weeks Canada does a draw, and if you get a score higher than the draw, you get invited. This time, the healthcare specific draws are only catered towards healthcare workers. You don't have to do anything special or anything extra for it. As long as your profile shows that you're in the healthcare field, you're good. And I'll show you exactly how to do that at the end of the video when we go through creating your profile. And these draws usually would have a lower CRS cutoffs, which means that even if your score isn't amazing, you still have a good shot at getting an invite. This is a game changer for IMGs in 2025. For example, in May and June, Canada already did 2 healthcare draws. That's a clear sign that there's still a big need for doctors and healthcare workers. Get this, the cutoffs were 510 in May and 504 in June, which means that the cutoffs are reducing, and that's great news for the doctors abroad or IMGs hoping to get their permanent residency. There's another option that's available to us or to you, and that's the provincial nomination. If express entry isn't working or for some reason you don't have enough points, the provincial nomination is another option for you. Each province in Canada has its own migration system, and some of them would give doctors extra priority, or they have dedicated streams for the healthcare workers. And so if you're interested in a specific province, you can go explore that province, do your research, and apply to their provincial nomination program. If you're selected and you get nominated, you get 600 extra points in addition to your already established points in the CRS system. So that would automatically boost your score above majority of others, which basically guarantees you an invitation. But there's a catch. If you get nominated by a specific province, you have to go and settle down there. You can't be nominated by Ontario and then when the time comes, you come in and you go settle in Alberta. Now let's go to the computer. I'm going to show you and I'm going to walk you through what a typical doctor's express entry profile looks like. We'll calculate the score together using the official website, and you can see how close you are to qualifying or what changes you need to make that would help you boost your score. Alright, so what you're going to do is type in the CRS calculator in your Google search. Usually the first entry is the official website. And so these are the questions you need to answer. So first, what's your marital status? So we'll say this gentleman or this doctor is married and his wife is not a citizen or permanent resident in Canada, and he would like to come to Canada with his wife. Yes. We'll say this doctor is 29 and level of education, he's a doctor, so he has completed a professional degree, which falls under here. Professional degree. Have you earned a Canadian degree? We'll say this person hasn't been to Canada yet, so no. But if you have been in Canada and you've done a 1-year program, this would be where you put it in and it will give you extra points. That's another strategy some people use. They come to Canada while they're working on their PARMs or while they're working on residency, writing their exams. They do a quick 1-year diploma course in anything, and that will give them extra points when they're eventually applying for permanent residency. But in this case, let's say this doctor does not have a Canadian degree yet. Official languages, English and French, so we'll assume this doctor speaks English and is going to take the English exam, and your results have to be within the last 2 years. So we'll say yes, your results are within 2 years. Which test did you take? We'll say you took the IELTS, and we're just going to select the highest scores. And so you can see it's a range. You don't have to get the highest band. For example, in writing, if you get between 7.5 and 9, you still get the maximum points. Same with speaking. So you don't have to get 9999. You can get within this band, but you still get the maximum points. Do you have any other language results? For this example, we'll say this doctor does not speak any other languages. It doesn't speak French, so not applicable. Work experience. In the last 10 years, how many years of work experience in Canada do you have? We say this person hasn't been to Canada, so has no work experience in Canada. In the last 10 years, how many total years of foreign skilled work experience do you have? Okay, so in his country, let's say he's been working for at least 3 years. Do you have a certificate of qualification? No. Do you have a valid job offer at this time? No. Do you have a nomination certificate from a province or territory? We'll say this person does not have one, but this is where you would put yes if you apply to the provincial nominee program and you've gotten accepted by a specific province. You would say yes, you have a nomination certificate. So you or your spouse have at least one brother or sister living in Canada who is a citizen or permanent resident. We'll say he doesn't have any relatives in Canada, but if you do, you get extra 15 points. what's the highest education level of education for your spouse. Say his spouse is also pretty educated, so let's say maybe master's degree, or maybe the spouse is also a doctor, so we click that. Or honestly, we can just do a bachelor's degree, because that's what majority of people, just in general, most people have a bachelor's. So let's say bachelor's degree. And the last 10 years, how many years of skilled work experience does your spouse or common law partner have in Canada? So since they've not been to Canada yet, we'll say none. And the spouse, yes, took an English test and also scored well on the English test. Now we can calculate our score, and based on that, we have a score of 482, which, if you look at the previous rounds of invitations, like I mentioned, in May and June, they did healthcare rounds. So you can see here, June 4th, healthcare and social services occupations, and the CRS cutoff score was 504. So at this time, we would not qualify for permanent residency, but there are certain things that you can do, or there are some things that could work in your favor. For example, if you had a sibling or brother or sister or a relative in Canada, you could say, yes, I do have a relative in Canada, and that would give you extra points. Also, if you, for example, you've been in Canada and you've did a 1-year diploma, 1-year certificate or something, sometimes even 8 months, so an 8-month diploma at a qualified institution would get you more points. Did earn a Canadian degree, you can say yes. Let's say it's a 1-year diploma, and once you recalculate the score, you can see the score is now 512. So once we added the diploma and me having a relative in Canada, this person would have qualified for the June 4th draw. And between June 4th, you can easily compile all the required documents, upload them online, and before the end of the year, you potentially would have your permanent residency. But let's say you don't have a relative in Canada and you haven't gotten a degree in Canada. You're back to 484 or 482, and the cutoff is 504. So we can look at the previous rounds and see what the cutoffs were in the past. So you can see here the healthcare draw is lower than the typical draws. For the provincial nomination, 700. For the CEC, it's 547, but the healthcare is 504. And the previous healthcare draw in May was 510. So the numbers are coming down, and you never know, the next draw could be lower than 482. And so if you look at other draws as well, look here, in November 2024, the healthcare draw was 463. So if this person had created a profile last year in November, he would have qualified back then, and by now would be in Canada as a permanent resident. And so I would encourage you to, get your degrees verified, write the English test, score high on the English test, and create your profile. There's no harm in creating a profile. You create a profile and just leave it there. You don't have to do anything, and then just wait for the draws and see if the draws are higher or lower. And if they're lower than your score, boom, you're in. So that's something I would encourage you to start working on now. You don't have to wait. You can start looking into it now. And say, for example, the draws are high and the score isn't coming down, you can always also look into the provincial nomination as well. So if you're, for example, if you did the provincial nomination for a certain province and you're successful, you get 600 points. If you add 600 points to 482, that's 1082. And look at the last provincial nomination draw, 726. So you look at this one too, 727, 764. So you'll be way higher than the cutoff anyway. So provincial nomination is also another thing you can look into if you're struggling to meet the cutoff. One thing I'll say though, the process for provincial nomination typically would take longer because you have to apply to the province first, get accepted by the province, and then now apply to express entry with your CRS, your new CRS score. So that would take typically longer than if you were just directly going straight to express entry. But there's hope that in November of last year, the cutoffs were in the 400s, and who knows, July or August, when the next draw comes down, it could go back into the 400s. Being a doctor kind of gives you an extra edge or an advantage when you're applying for immigration or PR in Canada. And the best part is you don't need anyone to help you figure this out. You can do this all by yourself from beginning to end. Let's say 6 months down the line, now you have your permanent residency. How do you start practicing in Canada? I've made a specific video addressing that, so make sure you check that out after this. We go over the different pathways you can use to enter the Canadian medical system, and I also go over each province and their pros and cons so you can decide where you want to settle in Canada. If you like this video, make sure you like the video, smash that like button, and let me know in the comments what you'd like to see me cover next. And make sure you share this video to other IMG doctors who are looking to move to Canada and start practicing in Canada. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.